Hi, this is Doug Morrison, and I'd like to welcome you to this episode of Teach for Effect. So far, we've looked at the learning factors of readiness, the idea that a student has to be mentally, physically, and emotionally ready to learn. Recency, that last things learned or remembered are remembered the best. And relationship, that you have to plan your lesson in a logical order proceeding from the known to the unknown. Now, if you missed those lessons, then I'd encourage you to watch them. I'll place links to them in the description below the video. Today, we're going to introduce a new learning factor that you can use as a teacher or instructor, the factor of intensity. The factor of intensity states that you want to use dramatic, realistic, or unexpected things in your lesson, as they'll be sure to be remembered. Students learn best from situations that are intense, that produce strong emotions. Once again, this is something you can take advantage of to be a better teacher. Make your lessons realistic and dramatic. Now, some of you might feel that what you're teaching just isn't that interesting. Well, the question I'd ask you is, why are you teaching it? What's the purpose behind your student learning what you're trying to pass on to them? If you can't find a good reason, you might want to question why you're teaching it in the first place. But if you can find that reason, then it will give you a way to make it realistic by showing them how it applies to their lives, how it can be of practical use, how it can make their lives better. From there, with a little bit of creativity, you can help to make it dramatic or unexpected. When I taught students how to fly, one of the lessons was what to do in the event of an engine failure. After a thorough briefing and spending some time questioning them on what steps they were to follow if the engine quit and why, I still managed to surprise many of them when I'd reach over and pull the power off. A lot of them thought, if only for a few seconds, that the engine really had quit. Now, one of the instructors I knew surprised himself doing that once. Most of us would simply pull the throttle back to idle. His practice was to turn off the key, and what happened one day is one of his students, just out of force of habit, once the key was turned off, pulled the key out and put it in her purse. Well, believe me, there were several anxious moments where they both were fumbling and scrambling trying to find that key to prevent the practice from becoming a real emergency. But as long as you can keep your lesson from becoming that dangerous, remember that students learn better from real experiences than they do from substitutes. I do want to caution you that you don't want to make the lesson so intense that it scares or discourages your students. You can make it real, but make it something that they can handle. A student of mine went up for his first flying lesson, and the instructor, not me, put the plane into a spin. Talk about an intense situation. In a spin, the plane has stopped flying, so it's falling vertically. And it's also rolling and pitching at the same time so that you're constantly spinning around and half the time you're upside down. It shocked him so much that months later I was still having trouble teaching him how to get out of a spin. That was a maneuver that should have been talked about and fully explained on the ground before it was ever experienced. You might not do anything quite that dramatic in your classes, but if you throw a student into something that they're not prepared for, such as a problem that is beyond their capacity to solve, or a skill for which they haven't mastered the basics yet, you can discourage them to the point that they might give up. Have you ever had a teacher do that to you? I certainly have. So make it as realistic and intense as possible, but use some discretion as well. Here are some practical tips on how you can apply this learning factor. Show enthusiasm and sincere interest in the topic yourself. Again, if you can't, why are you teaching what you're teaching? Vary your speech in rate, volume, and pitch to keep the student's attention. Use gestures as you speak to make an impression on your class. Use a variety of training aids, for example, videos, props, drawings, or acting something out. And give the students problems to solve that have a practical use in their lives. Bring your lesson to life, make it practical. Students learn more from real experiences than from artificial ones. That's why soldiers train with live ammunition and firefighters go into buildings that really are on fire. Now, do you teach on a regular basis? If you teach anyone for any reason, you know what a huge responsibility it is to properly instruct other people. As a flight instructor, I was held accountable for the success of my students. But even if I hadn't been, I would still have felt the pressure of having to ensure that what I was teaching was actually being learned. Over the years, I learned from other teachers, from books, from courses, and from my own experience and trial and error. Through all that, I developed what I call the Teaching for Effect system. If you're serious about having an impact on the lives of your students, I know that it can be a huge help to you in your teaching. I can teach it one-on-one or in a group setting. I can teach it online, or if you prefer, I also have an online course that you can study at your own pace. It comes with a workbook and homework assignments that will help you to introduce these learning principles into your own teaching. Check out the online course in the link below the video, or contact me at the email listed there. And if you found this video helpful, please help me out by liking, subscribing, and sharing. In the meantime, happy teaching.